Episode 17 of In the AM with MC. This should be Monday that you're listening to that. This is dropping. But we're recording on Sunday, April 13th, one of the most special days on the planet. Um, and let's get into it. We have a lot of things to talk about, pretty much all basketball topics except one football topic, discussing Sacramento State filing to go to the FBS. You know what? Let's start with that. So, Sacramento State, for those who don't know, is undergoing like a rebrand, a rebuild. A lot of these schools who are considered FCS or mid-major, they are suffering because of the NIL situation. They are suffering because of players trying to stiff them for money or just fielding a team in general costs too much money. You see schools dropping down on purpose so that they don't have to pay certain fees or certain thing. Like it's bad. But on the flip side of that, you'll always have schools that are trying to ascend and realize that if they're making a little bit of money now, they have to take big swings and get to that next level to try to get in the realm of the P4s, P5s to stay afloat. And it stems from the love of the game. It stems from the love of football. It stems from guys that teams end up taking chances on. And then it's like, well, you only get this job once. You know, Joe Shane's son infamously said that to him in Hard Knocks. You only get this job once. And so I think that when you think about that concept of you only get this job once, why not try to move up to the FBS? Sacramento State has a brand new head coach in Brennan Marion, who was an all American, I believe, at Tulsa. Led the nation in yards per reception. I'm not sure how many years he played in the NFL, but I do know he has been the innovator of the go-go offense. I was blessed to see the go-go offense in real life when I was at Howard. And even though at that time I still didn't understand football that much schematically, I understood what he was doing was completely different and abnormal in a cool way. It was really transformative. He went with Coach Mike London, who was with him at Howard. They went to William and Mary, but not before they pulled off the biggest Vegas odds upset at that time in college football. And it was against UNLV of all places. So fast forward, Marion goes with Coach London, and they're in William and Mary, I believe. And I think he was with them for like 1 or 2 years or something like that. But then he went to the likes of UT, where he coached Xavier Worthy, and he was at the likes of Pitt, where he coached Jordan Addison to Blintikov. And then he went to UNLV, where he coached Ricky White to a phenomenal season. He was the OC there. And he's a guy that his story is so cool. But like players want to play for him, like not just because of the unconventionality of his offense, but like his command of it. You know, he is firm in his beliefs, and he's a very smart coordinator. And again, he seems like a coach that can get the most out of guys. When he was coaching at Howard, he got the most out of Jaquez Ezzard, who's a name that if you really follow football, you should know. You know, Ezzard was a standout at Howard, also led the nation in yards per reception, and then went to Sam Houston State as a grad transfer back when that was like the only real transfers people were doing, you know, grad transfers. And then with the help of Eric Schmidt at quarterback, they won the FCS national championship. So yeah, shout out to Ezzard, shout out to Coach Marion. So now Coach Marion is fast forward, he's the head coach at Sacramento State. And of course he's gonna run a go-go, right? I mean, it's yet to be seen um them versus actual competition because he just got hired. He just fell out of staff. But like you see the excitement about the recruits. Like there's tons of recruits across the board. There's tons of transfer portal guys across the board. And so from Marion's perspective, I'm sure he's got a great collaborative relationship with the AD. They're like, we have to strike while the iron is hot. We have to move up to FBS because they're going to start to be able to, strike, these major deals with the revenue. And so if they just increase the revenue as much as they can, try to use that to fund the program, try to use the football program to fund other sports. That's what they do. And that's what they're trying to do. It'll be interesting to see what goes on. And it's really cool. I think I mentioned this. I might have mentioned this on a different episode, or I might have mentioned this on the Polaroid podcast. But it's really cool to see the rebuild uh, going on at Sacramento State because it's so close to home. You have Coach Marion, but you also have his head of strength and conditioning, Coach O'Mary, who was at William and Mary with Coach London and also at Howard. And he really made such an impact on my like day to day as an athlete, because I just didn't know what I was doing. He's helped a lot of people. He's a selfless guy, and he loves football, just like all these other guys love football. So Sacramento State finally to go FBS, and the last thing I'll say on that topic is like, you are playing the long game because you're not eligible for the postseason for at least 2 years. So you are playing the long game because there's no other game to play, right? Like you want to get to where you want to get to. So let's hope that they can get there. I think that they'll field very competitive teams. The WNBA draft is Monday, April 14th. So either when this drops or, the day before, something like that. But Paige Beckers is almost surely going to go number one. I believe the young lady from France, she's like 6'10", she dunking. She's probably going to go number two. And then from there, we'll see. It really depends on team need, right? I think with any league where you have rounds, there's going to be the assumption and possibly it'll inherently be true to an extent that there is a substantial drop off as you go from round to round. But that's not to say that there's not someone in each round who could exist in any other round. And I think because the rounds are so short in the WNBA and there's so few teams that some teams are going to be able to double dip here. Like this is a weak draft. I don't want to act like this is not a draft like that is, in my opinion, historically weak and is not anywhere near the draft they had last year as far as talent is concerned or as far as players who are day one starters. But that being said, teams can get really greedy here. Like you can find a way to leave with Anissa Morrow and Sanaya Rivers, like that's a haul. Like you can find a way to leave with Lauren Betts and Sonia Centrone, right? That's a haul. It just depends on how the teams go about it. Las Vegas, I know the Las Vegas Aces do not have a first round pick, which I discussed on my other which I discussed on a different episode. So it'll be interesting to see if they do try to trade up or if someone just falls into their lap, which is very, very likely, very possible. Um, I think that a couple of players who can definitely change teams early. Amore, Georgia Amore from Kentucky, Sanaya Rivers from NC State, Sanaya Fegan from South Carolina, Anise Morrow, Betts, Kiki, um, yeah, a couple of players who I think can just be day one contributors in the WNBA. And it's coming up soon. The league start date is pretty soon. So good luck to all of those players that may be drafted in the WNBA draft. Haley Van Lith, TCU, Olivia Miles. So I want to first obviously shout out TCU for what they were able to do this year. My Van Lith herself has talked at length about how the school and the coaches have aided her in her development personally, mentally, and you see it on the court. You see the on-court product. But that being said, right, it's an attractive destination but you also have to consider who has the money to spend. So they're a place that would have some money to spend in this department, so they can go out and get top players on the portal. So or on the market, it's not all about money. Yes, it is about money for certain players in certain situations, but like in a situation like Olivia Miles, right? I don't think that she's going for a money grab because people are like, yeah, she's going to TCU for money. She was not a fan of the situation in South Bend. She was not a fan of what the situation would possibly look like next year, you know. And there's aspects of her game she probably wants to work on that she feels like she won't be able to work on while she's in Notre Dame. You have to also consider the fact that she might be um, done with her degree. If she's not done with her degree, I find it really hard to believe she's going to transfer 90 something credits over to TCU and finish the year. But I'm pretty sure she's done with her degree. That being said, a lot of these people are not super focused on the degree itself. That does bother me. I don't want to talk about that right now, but you know, I would hope that me thinking about this logistically and realistically, that she's either about to be done with her degree in Notre Dame in the summer and she's going to go do a 1 year at TCU, or that she's going to go to TCU and know that she's not going to be able to finish her credits if she then goes to the league next year. And hopefully she spins back and she's able to finish her degree, But as far as playing, as far as the on-court product, TCU is going to field a great team, and she wants to be at the helm of a great team. And there's nothing against that, in my opinion. Um, you have to think about who you're playing with and who you're playing for. That being said, as well, right? This big story, oh, she isn't going to declare because she's making too much in college versus not making anything in the WNBA. Everything I just mentioned is why I think she's not going to declare. She would go really high, but next year, right? And you see the way that the league is progressing, like a lot of players are expected to go in and then be these franchise changers. And then if you're not, then you're called a bust or like you could just get cut. Like these players are getting cut. Um, a lot of like 10, like number 10 overall, number 12 overall, like these picks, they're getting cut from the team. The second and third round picks, their contracts aren't even guaranteed. So yes, Miles will go high, but I think she's concerned about all those things I mentioned before. And then like, yeah, like her overall development, like actually her overall development. She could probably get a little stronger, probably want to go to the weight room. Like there's things like that people don't consider. Another thing is the way that you're treated in college versus in the pros. Like in the pros, like a lot of the teams, the facilities don't compare to the college facilities. The way that you're treated, like the food that's available, the flights, the chartered flight situation, like those things are not readily available. It's less so about the money. It's about everything. It's about the holistic product and experience. As far as the money, of course, Olivia Miles is making a lot of money through her NIL valuation. She's a very popular player. She was big in high school. I don't think people understand that. Like, just because you're tuning into something like when you get there does not mean that's when it started. Like you have to do just a little bit of research and a little bit of intellectual heavy lifting. But the problem is nobody wants to do that anymore. Nobody wants to do any intellectual heavy lifting. Nobody wants to do any hard work. And so you have to understand if you're a fan of the game, right? If you want to talk about Olivia Miles and her decision, like people want to interact with these news headlines in a vacuum. You just saw what happened to Kyra and Lacey, right? Tragedy. You see this thing with Olivia Miles, think about Jonte Porter. People interact with those kind of things in a vacuum just to for whatever reason, without really understanding or trying to understand what's going on. So again, with Miles, her NIL money that can continue after she's finishes college, whether she plays basketball or not. One of Caitlin Clark's teammates, I think her last name is Marshall, but one of her teammates, from their championship run, right, where they lost in the championship game, she is still getting money from most of the people who endorsed her when she was in college. She doesn't play basketball anymore. She's retired. It doesn't matter. Like that's the thing about name, image, and likeness. Just because you are no longer an amateur athlete and you become a professional athlete does not mean that your name changes. Your image will change because you're now representing a new brand or a new team, and your likeness will probably also not change. It may change, but I doubt it. Okay, so um, yeah, I think Olivia Miles is making the best decision for Olivia Miles, and I don't think it's just the dollar sign and all of this junk. And there's no need to use all these stories to put your thumb under like over the WNBA, right? People want to dunk on the WNBA. The WNBA is in its like 20 something season, right? Like they're super young, like 26th season, maybe like 28th. The NBA was not profitable until like the 38th or 39th season. Just let that rest for a second. There was no profit there. And they needed these giant superstars like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and Michael Jordan to come and burst onto the scene in the ways that they did for the league to turn the profits that they were turning. Scottie Pippen signed a 7-year deal for $14 million. Like, come on. The WNBA is doing very well. Do they want to be doing better? Yes. But they're doing very well, especially when you look at them stacked up in history versus other leagues in their first 25, 30 years and how the money shapes out and how the feasibility of the money shapes out, right? Everyone wants to make the money, but is the money there to be made? Another player who made headlines, AZ Fudd. I predicted on this show that AZ Fudd was going to cook in the national championship game, and I couldn't have been more correct, but she was cooking crazy. Like when she had that one crossover where she kind of iced the screen and went downhill left and had a little kiss off the glass, I said, yeah, she's confident. Like she's telling herself, I don't care. Like we're winning this game. But also, that's a sign that the body's feeling good, right? And just imagine this former number one overall recruit having a year where she can be more of the focal point. She can be more of a ball handler in the offense. This year, Gino really used her more as a catch and shoot player. She played phenomenal defense though. Even at just 5'11", you could see her doing some of the dirty work in the post, being the AZ Fudd that was recruited to UConn. But yeah, I think next year she's going to want to beat the focal point a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see who eats up some of the minutes in Becker's leaving and some of the seniors leaving. I'm not sure if Chen is a 1 or a 2 year, but if she's a 1 year, right? If Chen leaves, who's gonna eat up some of those minutes for UConn? But I love to see AZ Fudd returning. I think that again, to the point I was just making about Olivia Miles, if Fudd went in the draft, she probably would have went no lower than number 5, and she would have been expected to turn around a franchise and putting a lot of miles on her body, and then probably expected to play unrivaled or something. It's like you're putting a lot of miles on your body right after you just had a national championship run, and you at times this year did not feel like yourself. I think she would admit that. She probably has admitted that. At times she hasn't felt like or looked like herself. Uh Thinking about rehab, sports medicine is one of the most underappreciated fields of work, in my opinion, because people who perform on athletes, high level athletes, like they don't like you. Do you know? Does anyone know? Right? If you could put the name of the scientist or the doctor who worked on Rob Gronkowski's right shoulder, I'll give you $100. If you can put that doctor's name in the comments, I'll give you $100. I know the name of that doctor. I'm not gonna tell you why I know his name. It's not because I'll know all everyone's name. I'm just saying I happen to know that guy's name. If you know his name, put his name in the comments, and I'll give you $100 because I promise you nobody does. But Rob Gronkowski would not have been able to play 10 years, whatever he played with his shoulder being torn off the bone. But this doctor fixed his shoulder for him essentially. And look at him now. And look at he's talking on podcasts about all that they did for the Patriots and the Buccaneers. He came out of retirement and he looked like a dog when he played for the Buccaneers. Yeah, he wasn't all that old, but he had miles on his body and he plays a brutal position where he's getting beat up all the time and he always has a shoulder brace on. But he was able to do that because of the doctor who fixed him. And so I say that to say AZ Fudd probably really enjoys the rehab situation at UConn, whatever it is, the treatment rehab situation. You don't want to give that up just because you could be the face of a team. She'll be the face of a team next year. Right now, well, she's gonna be the face of UConn, but you could be the face of a professional team next year. It doesn't matter. So she understands that. I also see a world in which uh Gino Oriyama retires after next year. I believe he's 71 years old. He clearly has a soft spot for Paige Becker. She's one of his favorite recruits in years. But I think AZ Fudd, I think they go to the mountaintop again next year. They have a lot on their team. I think they could get somebody in the transfer portal named Malaysia Fulwiley, but we're gonna talk about that in a second. But I think that um, that there's a lot left on that bone and that for Fudd and for UConn as a team. But I think that Oriyama knows he's got to hang it up. He's got to hang it up. I mean, he's got to hang it up. He's probably grooming a successor of some kind, and then he also wants to have a peaceful transition of power because you don't want to be 80 years old and not have a will. That's kind of what people talk about in that regard. Um, I think this could be his last year. I really do think they could get Malaysia Fulwiley in the portal. I'm gonna talk about Fulwiley right here, and then I'm gonna do Cod's Kitchen, and then we're gonna end the episode with talking about the All NBA teams. This is the 17th episode of In the AM with MC. Dawn Staley is very capable of coaching all kinds of players, but if you're a guard, she's the perfect coach for you, right? Because she played at UVA, she led them to a Final Four national championship situation, and she was a superstar at guard. And she's shown that she can develop these guards, right? Um, but at the same time, every player is not going to wait around to be coached. Every player is not going to gel with every coach. And what you have with this full Wiley situation is that last year, her role on the team, it was cool and she was a freshman. And so it was like, yeah, it's a freshman. But she also had more touches last year, undoubtedly so. She had way more touches and she was allowed to make some of the mistakes she was making, both offensively and defensively, because she was a freshman. So she did get pulled a lot, but she got pulled a lot less because I think Dawn Staley was like, well, she's a freshman. I have to let her play through this. This year, Dawn Staley was not going for none of that. She was like, I will put you on the bench. And also, I have Raven Johnson. I'm starting Raven Johnson because I know what I'm going to get out of her, and she's reliable. Tessa Johnson stepped up this year, and she brought something that Fulwiley didn't bring, and she's slightly bigger, right? Does not create, no one creates their own shot like Malaysia Fulwiley. Nobody spreads the floor like her. Nobody can dish it out like her. But when you have a team of 10 All-Americans and everyone can dish and most of them are taller, bigger, and stronger than you, you're gonna lose minutes somehow. This is not just a Dawn Staley like faux pas situation. I believe at some point the relationship between the two of them was fractured. At some point, Fulwiley's listening to all the noise and everyone's like, "You too good to be on the bench," and she's like, "Man, I am too good to be on the bench." I think that Dawn Staley agrees, but I think that the way she might have went about it, or maybe the leash she had on her, whatever you want to call it, it just didn't transpire into what this could have bloomed into. I think that if Fulwiley stayed 2 more years, I really think she could have been a National Player of the Year. Like she's that good, but it's not going to happen at South Carolina. That's what's been established. Latson goes over there, and everyone's like, "Yeah, AAU teammates, they're going to play together." Who Politics was just talking about that. Everybody was AAU teammates. People care, but they don't care that much. Everybody was AAU teammates, you know? Um, Everybody was AAU teammates. She's gone. She's gone. So Latson is now going to fill into Fulwiley's role, but she's going to play better defense and she's going to score the pill at a higher rate. What is Fulwiley going to do is the question. I like Florida. The two schools I like for her are Florida and UConn. I think she fits into both. The only question is like, how is she going to respond to being coached? I'm not saying she's a coaching problem, but once you leave one coach, especially one that's known to be kind of hard nosed, like Staley, you do get that reputation, and people do start asking questions. Are you coachable? Are you going to be coachable in this situation? Are you going to want your way or the highway, or things like that? But I think that Fulwiley is the goods, and I think that her at Florida or UConn would be a great way for her to get off, but kind of stay in the public eye enough that we don't lose sight of the fact how good she is, because there's so many players in the league who in women's college basketball who we don't fully appreciate because their games just aren't on like that. But for Wiley's must see TV. Like Magic Johnson said, one of the plays that she made coast to coast is one of the best plays he's ever seen. Magic Johnson said that. Irvin Magic Johnson. So for Wiley's the goods. I want to see where she goes. My guesses and my hopes are UConn or Florida. Welcome to Cod's Kitchen. I'm not sure which episode this is. I believe it's three or four, but this is Cod's Kitchen. And a little known fact about myself is that my mother, my dear mother, attended culinary school for a period of her life, and she is an incredible baker. Like we always, as her children, we be asking her, like when's the next time you gonna make this, or like can you bring a little bit of this with you when you come to this place or whatever. Man, I can't even don't even get me started. So as a child, probably like 13, 14, 15, especially, she made time for me to get in the kitchen, and she wouldn't tell me everything what to do because I think she realized I was a little bit of a hothead. So sometimes I'd be like, no, no, no. I famously remember one time I made this thing called festival, which is like a sweet with a little bit of savory, kind of almost like it's not really like a pastry, more like a snacking bread. Um, that's like West Indian, and I used salt instead of sugar because I was like, leave me alone, leave me alone. And like she went inside, and I remember like I was going so fast, like I know what to do, I know how to make it. And I wasn't looking. I used salt instead of sugar. Oh my goodness, what a shame. But if you're gonna live by yourself, if you're gonna live with a significant other, if you're gonna live with children, if you're gonna live life, you need to know how to make some biscuits. So I'm gonna throw the recipe on the screen, hopefully, right here ish. But everybody make the biscuits a little bit different, I don't really I don't know too much about the chemistry of like this flour versus that flour. Sometimes people are like, you have to use bread flour, you have to use self-rising. Like, I think any flour would get the job done. I think the key to making good biscuits is putting care into them, using a pretty solid quality butter and using buttermilk instead of milk or water. I think those are like the keys to making good biscuits. But yeah, a little bit of flour, baking powder, a little bit of salt. And then you take a stick of butter, you cut that stick of butter up into like baby cubes, like you cube it into just tiny, tiny, tiny cubes, and then you throw that in with the dry ingredients. And then that's when you like to like kind of get your hands into it. So I like, you mush it around until the little cubes are just pulverized, pea-sized bits. If you could get them smaller, almost like couscous size, that would be perfect. But just, really go to town with the butter, and then you want to just make a little well, wash your hands as necessary. At this point, you probably want to wash your hands, then make a little well and pour a cup of buttermilk in the well, and then just slowly dip all the dry ingredients into the well. And then you want to knead. Kneading is super fun and like therapeutic, but kneading, you just push and fold, essentially. Push and fold, you push and fold. And it's a universal bread technique. And a lot of types of breads, and kneading is really, really necessary. You don't want to over knead for sure, but just knead enough that by the time you have like this fullness to your recipe, my recipe makes anywhere from 6 to 8 biscuits, depending on how big your molder is. And so you can have, I actually use like the kind of like the cookie cutter tin molders, but sometimes I'll take a mason jar. Like I have like a maybe like a 12-ounce, 14-ounce mason jar. You spray the top of it so it doesn't get caught up really, and you can form them that way. Either way, just make sure when you form them, you don't twist, because then you won't get like those lovely kind of stacks and like layered airiness inside the biscuit itself when you turn and twist like that. So just go up, down, trust the process, because like sometimes they'll look a little funky. But when you throw them in the oven, they will do its thing. You just gotta watch them from time to time. I don't really know what time I cook nothing on when I bake, but I always just turn the oven light on, and I'll run and check periodically. But that's why the oven light is the greatest thing to ever exist. Because when I was younger, we did not have a window into our oven with the lights, but the oven light and the oven window are the two greatest things to exist. But those are some biscuits you can make on a Sunday or just any day. But I like to have them with like some chicken. I like to have them with some grape jelly, some honey. Trust. All right. Let's talk about these all NBA teams. So the NBA season is just about to wrap up. The regular season is. The play-in tournament is about to start. I'm probably going to sit down and watch some of those. The play-in is a weird, like maybe guilty pleasure that I have, because some people hate the play-in. And I think that at first I was totally against it, but it makes the end of the season super important. The end of season games are also really fun because you see players who normally wouldn't play during the season, but there's so many DNPs that the Stars are getting now. These like end of the bench guys are getting to get off, or these G League guys. I think we're going to see some JD Davidson soon for the Celtics. That's awesome, right? JD Davidson was G League MVP, and he was a freak, super freak, like athlete at Alabama. Like he's always been one of my favorite players to watch, like as far as like mixtapes and stuff. And so now he's going to be converted to the team, full contract, and it'd be interesting to see like if he can get off and like maybe this last couple games to let him play. But another 60-win year for the Celtics. The Boston Celtics are rolling. Brad Stevens might be a better GM than coach. That dude is he has the team rolling. All right, All NBA first team. I have Cade Cunningham. Motorcade is playing phenomenal basketball, but he's also doing it in a way that makes you have an appreciation for the sport. He has he has 35 points, 10 boards, and he'll have 10 assists, and he'll have four free throw attempts. He also has 9 assists, and his passing has always been like a big part of his game. But we got really lazy in NBA discourse. If a guy was 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", and they were handling the ball, that's LeBron James. And Cade Cunningham definitely was compared to LeBron James at some point in his career, whether it was at Oklahoma State or whether it was at Montverde. But he's not LeBron James. He's Cade Cunningham. He's like final form Michael Carter Williams. If Michael Carter Williams turned into like what he maybe could have, considering the intangibles he had, that's Cade Cunningham. If he made some better decisions here and there, Cade Cunningham's a vegan. I'm sure that helps him out, right? First team, SGA, my co-MVP. First team, also Jokic, my co-MVP. Those should both go without saying. They've both played tremendous basketball. Jokic averaged a triple-double, the first center to ever average a triple-double. Take a bow, right? They lost their head coach, which was whack. I think that he should not have had to be the sacrificial lamb for whatever was going on. But they could very well be competitive. Like if they play the Lakers first round, the Lakers will probably beat them, but it'll be like a hard 6 games. If they play somebody else, they might beat somebody else. It really depends. Because Jokic is Jokic. Never forget that. Jokic is Jokic. Evan Mobley, first team. He could possibly be defensive player of the year. He holds down the fort for the Cavaliers. He's 7 feet and he can guard 1 to 5. People talk about that guard to 1 to 5 stuff. He can guard 1 to 5. I can give you a list of players who can guard 1 to 5. It's not long. He can guard 1 to 5. Giannis Antetokounmpo, first team. Goes without saying. Beast from the East. He makes life very hard for those around him. That's my first team. Cunningham and SGA, Giannis and Jokic, and then Mobley. Second team, this is going to be the hardest to make. Jalen Brunson, big body Brunson. And, I haven't even gotten to look at the specifications because some of these guys will most likely not be eligible, right? You have to play 65 games to be eligible for some of these postseason awards. I think that's poppycock. I think it's so stupid. But some of these guys just won't be eligible. Brunson, big body Brunson. He's a problem. He's must-see TV. He's the best player in the league outside of Shea at playing off of 2 feet, and he's 6'1". Steph Curry. Steph Curry makes the Warriors an actual legitimate title contender, and he kept them afloat at times where it made no sense for them to be afloat. I will say that the streakiness of his game confuses people sometimes because he'll have a 50-point triple double, and then the next day he'll have 3 points. That's just what happens. That's the parity of his game. That's the streakiness of his game. Sometimes he will miss a lot of threes. Sometimes he'll be off a little bit. It happens. But he's still Steph Curry, and he's second team All NBA in Michael Codrington's All NBA picks. My three bigs, I have Cat, Bam, and Bron. Cat has really blossomed this season. Defensively, he's still not there, but offensively, he is hard to stop. He once called himself the best big three-point shooting big man of all time, and everyone was like, what the heck? He's still not, in my opinion, but he's closer than you think. He's probably 3 or 4, and he's going to end his career with anywhere from 1,700 to 1,900 made threes, which is pretty scary to think about from the center position. Bam Adebayo, I don't believe he can guard 1 to 5. Sorry, Bam. Probably can guard 1 to 4. I think he's too small to guard the Wembys of the world. I think that's pretty clear. But Bam's a great player, and he's doing a little bit more offensively than he kind of has in the past. And LeBron James, this is the first season LeBron James has not averaged at least 25 points per game since his rookie year. Guess how many points LeBron James is going to average? 24.9 or 24.8. Who cares, right? Still special basketball in his 22nd season. I think his son and his new head coach gave him a new lease on life. He's flying around out there, and I'm really confident in putting LeBron James on here over 2 of my 3 third-team selections. The only person on the third team who I'd be happy swapping out with LeBron James is Jason Tatum, because Tatum is like top 5 in every category in the league, and he's never really appreciated for his durability and his leadership and the fact that he is a defending champion. Third team, give me the whole Cleveland Cavaliers backcourt. Garland and Donovan Mitchell playing special basketball. If you want Mitchell out, give me Anthony Edwards playing special basketball. And Ant-Man started the year and he just shot so many threes, and people were like, get to the cup more. And he was like, no, I'm going to shoot threes. And he kept shooting threes, but then he mixed up going to the cup more. And man, Ant-Man it's a blessing that we get to watch him play basketball. Give me Ant-Man or Donovan Mitchell at the guard spot. Give me Garland at the other guard spot. Give me Durant. Give me Tatum or Bron. And give me Triple J. I'm not a big fan of Jaren Jackson Jr. I made that pretty clear both on Twitter and on this show, but he has been the best player on the Grizzlies. John Morant can be the best player on the Grizzlies, but I think their best player is Triple J, and it might stay that way. We'll see. 17th episode of In the AM with MC. Thanks for rocking with the kid. We're getting to 20. We're getting there soon. See ya.